Why do they burn out? Are inverter welders really that bad? It's not that the inverter welder is bad, it's that we're doing something wrong. Hello everyone, how are you? Welcome to a new video. I received a lot of messages telling me that inverter welders are bad and that transformer welders are better. Is this true? Is this real? Or what's the problem? No, inverter welders are not bad. It's just that we're using them incorrectly. I've had this inverter welder that I've been using for 5 years and nothing has ever happened to it. Many of you will call me Gabucha Lopez. But your machine must be from a good brand or the most expensive one, and it's not one of the cheapest on the market. The main problem with inverter welders, the reason why they burn out or shut off by themselves, is because of the duty cycle. But what is the duty cycle? The duty cycle is the amount of time you can use the welder for continuous welding. But how do we know what the duty cycle of our machine is? Each machine has a chart somewhere. Mine has it back here, others have it in the front or underneath. You have to look for that chart to know the duty cycle. The duty cycle is measured over 10 minutes. What does this mean? That on the inverter welder you'll see a chart similar to this one? In my case it's here, acá. But to explain it better to you, I'll write it on the board. In the work cycle, we're going to look at the percentage and the amperage. There are other things too, but we won't talk about those in this video. Almost all machines have 60, 80 and 100%. My machine says that at 60% amperage, I can weld at 120. So let's say that at 60, we're going to weld at 80. We will be able to weld at 103 amps and at 100 we will weld at 91 amps. The 10 minutes is 100% of the machine. Depending on the amperage we're using, we'll need to know how to calculate how much we can weld. I'll continue with the machine. Okay, so we said that 10 minutes is 100% of the machine, right? So here where I have time, I'm going to set it to 10 minutes. Time and rest. You won't find this on the machine. I wrote it here to explain it better to you so you can understand. Alright, we said, now we have to calculate that out of the 10 minutes we're going to use 80% at 103 amps. 8 minutes of continuous welding. And 10 minutes at 60% would be 6 minutes of continuous welding. Now we need to know how much rest we have to give the machine. So, as we just said, the duty cycle is calculated over 10 minutes. So at 100%, how many minutes are we going to leave for rest? 0. We put 0. Now, if we're working with 10 minutes at 80%, we said it was 8 minutes, we have to reach 10 minutes. So we have to let the machine rest for 2 minutes. Let's see. Now at 60%, we need 4 minutes of letting the machine rest before using it again. Well, here I explained in this little chart how you have to use the machine so it doesn't burn out. And this would be the machine's duty cycle. Well, we said that at 100% the machine welds at 91 amps. We can lower it, for example, to 90 or 85, and we can keep using the 10 minutes of continuous welding. Now, if we're going to weld at 80%, which would be at 103 amps at 100, and lowering it no matter what, it's going to be at 80%. So, we're going to have to use the machine for 8 minutes and let it rest for 2 minutes. The same thing will happen with the 61. We can use 110, 105, and we also have to work for 6 minutes and let it rest for 4 minutes. What does it mean to let the machine rest or take a break? Does it mean we're not going to use it for 2 minutes? For example, I'm going to use the 80% one, which means I have to weld for 8 minutes, so I weld. I weld for 8 minutes and then I have to let the machine rest for 2 minutes, and after that I can continue welding for another 8 minutes. We leave the machine unused for 2 minutes. What do I mean by letting it rest or cool down? It's not that we're going to leave, we're going to turn off the welder, we're not going to leave it on, because the welder has a fan in the back that will cool down the machine so we can use it again every 8 minutes. If we finish welding for 8 minutes and turn it off suddenly, the circuit board doesn't cool down properly, and that can cause the machine to burn out. The 100% of the machine, which we said is at 91 amps, needs to rest or cool down for about 10 minutes. No, because during the rest time we have 0. So if we stay at 91 amps or less, we can weld continuously without taking a break. So what should you look for when buying an inverter welder? Well, how do you know which inverter welding machine you can buy? Some machines have their duty cycle on the box. If not, the brand you like the most or the one that caught your attention, look it up online and check if it lists the duty cycle, also depending on what you need the machine for. For example, if you have to do a job where you need to use a 3.2mm electrode, you know that this electrode needs between 90 and 120 or 130 amps. So from there, you need to look for a machine whose duty cycle is 100% at 120 amps. For continuous welding, so to speak, you shouldn't buy lightly, but rather you need to research and know what you're going to need the machine for. Something very important is not to go by the name of the machine because it can be misleading. For example, brand Juanete 250. And it doesn't mean that it's going to weld at 250 amps, it's just the model of the machine. It might only weld at 100 amps, and if you go by the name, you could be misled. So, no, that's not a good example. Mine is Esmal 150, and you might say, oh, but it welds at 150 amps. No, my machine welds at 120 amps. Sometimes the names are misleading, and we think that the name means that's the number of amps it has, but that's not the case. Speaking of the previous example, let's suppose we have a machine with a 100% duty cycle at 130 amps. At 130 amps, we can use it continuously for 10 minutes. If I have to weld several structures, I'll be able to weld comfortably with the electrode I need, because I have 100% of what I said I needed from a 130 amp machine. The amperage shown here is always the maximum it can weld at with that duty cycle. For example, at 100% we said the maximum is 130. At 80% the maximum would be 150. And at 60% the maximum would be 180. Then the working time is the same, you rest in the same way, and you work in the same way. Except that with this machine, we can weld at a higher amperage than with my machine, the one I just showed. For example, if we have to weld at 140 amps, we look at the chart and we don't see 140 amps anywhere. So if we said that 80% was the maximum at 150, we can lower it from 150 to 140. So we calculate that we have to use the machine for 8 minutes, but there aren't electrodes big enough to weld for 8 continuous minutes. What does this mean? What it means is that when we put in an electrode, we use it up completely, then we put in another electrode and burn through it all. That's what the 8-minute duty cycle refers to, that we finish one electrode, then put in another, finish that electrode, and put in another. And when we go past the 8 minutes of work, we have to let it rest. 2. We set that without turning off the machine. We set the clamp aside, wait 2 minutes, and then we can work another 8 minutes straight. For example, if we finish welding an electrode and start adjusting the structure, or if something gets dirty and we start cleaning it, it's not that we have to wait the 2 minutes of rest and then start welding again. The time doesn't reset. You can weld continuously for 8 minutes and then, yes, let the machine rest for 2 minutes as long as you actually use the full 8 minutes. If we're going to be changing the electrode continuously, using one up and putting in another over and over, then yes, we do need to let the machine rest. Otherwise, we don't. For example, if we're doing tack welds or working on different parts here and there, it's not necessary because the machine is already getting some rest in between. Meanwhile, you went to the other side or you bent or adjusted your structure. So inverter welders aren't bad. It's you who's using it incorrectly. Now, knowing this about the duty cycle, your welder will last you a long time. And what did you all think? Did you know about the duty cycle? Did you just find out, or did you just understand it, or do you have any questions? Let me know down below in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, please follow me. It really helps.